Doc Slab Audio on music production and audio engineering. Welcome to Doc Slab Audio and our Insights series. I do believe this is the 19th video in our Insights series, and in this video we want to talk about developing a strategy for composing and creating. And I addressed this in our third master series quite well, but I wanted to go through this a little bit and give you a little bit more insight on that, because it's kind of a complicated issue. First of all, I do not dissuade you from digging around about how people compose. How do they get going? How do they get unstuck? How do they get motivated? But in the end, you will find that you have your own workflow and your own way of creating and working through productions. And one of the biggest things that I will say is that when you get stuck, move on. When you get stuck and you get blocked and you're just getting stuck in the mud, set it aside and work on something else. Pick up a different instrument, start trying to do some other type of composition to keep going. Come back to it. Sometimes you may come back to it right away. You may come back to it after a whole another 2 or 3 compositions and then go back to it. You may never go back to it, but don't throw it away because it was a cool idea when you started. But don't stay stuck. Get undone and work on something else is one of the biggest things I can tell you. The next thing is that I think that most of the time that there's a couple different ways that most composers work. First of all, that if you look at my downloadable notebook, that there's tons of information I've put in there about some ideas and thoughts I've had. But most of the time you'll get composers that really understand theory and see all theory, instruments, articulations, everything as Legos. And they'll open up their software and just start going. Start piecing the things together with Lego blocks. Start with the drums or the bass or the guitar or anything, and just start one note at a time, one measure at a time, one section at a time. Start building. Building blocks, doing it just like Lego work, and then, using your software to play back what's going on, how things are working together, harmonies and progressions and melody lines, and how things are kind of jiving together, and they just go. Some people need a little bit more work on their understanding of theory, musical software, composition software, and things like that to really be good at that, but it's a great place to do that. Second of all, you get a lot of people that will just get in their DAW and they'll start getting ideas. They'll get a little drum riff or a guitar riff or a bass riff or a synth pad progression or something, and they'll start trying to piece a little section together, a movement or a measure, and then seeing how, an intro and a verse and a chorus, and kind of working like that. And they'll just start just kind of building along as they go. Now, in my notebook, I had really put in there that it's a good idea to look at music composition and study about it. And next, inside of here, there's all kinds of guides, basics, what is the subject? What is the theme, its character? What are you trying to say? What place are you in spatially? What time is it? What's the weather like? On and on and on. Basic subjects, people, places, things, time, emotions, all kinds of things like that, and basic constructs of major, minor, diminished, augmented, on and on. And then you get into a basic theology or philosophy of how you just kind of get started and really start working on that. What you start out with. You're picking a key, a tempo, a time signature. You're starting with trying to create a hook. What are you exactly trying to do? And how about going to do it? And just always remember in there, every note is important. Every chord is important. Points on that. And song structures. Basic song structures. I always try to move in movements, transitions, and breaks that are always trying to go forward. Substructures, hooks, progressions, bass lines, advanced structures, basic forms, feeling, situation, transference, convoyance, all those kind of things. Instrument arrangement, progressions, melodies, and theologies on that. Harmonies, different types of harmonies, what they mean, inverse of them and all that. Instrument ranges, key signatures, fretboard, staff layout. Understanding your instrument, its articulations, composing definitions, musical symbols. All these things are huge in helping you get ideas, to where you start thinking about all these different things to get you started, with some type of instrument or something. Does that make sense? But one of the biggest things that I wanted to say is I think that some of the best composers that I've seen, one of the biggest traits they have is not trying to hear an entire production at one time, like an entire symphony, and trying to hear all the parts at one time in their head, but hearing other stuff going on. Like, let's say if I'm trying to do some rock thing or something, and I got this progression just goes, something like that, da, da, da. And they start trying to hear everything that's going on with it. They really start practicing on focusing on what's going on. You've got da, da, on the bass, ba, or a lead line, trying to hear these things in their head while they're doing something, whether they start with the bass or the keys or the guitar or anything. While they're working on it, is trying to hear the rest of it going on. Really focusing on trying to hear, okay, I'm trying to hear this guitar part. And then the drums are going to go. What's the bass doing there? Well, really sitting there. I know it sounds very funny, but it's very hard to convey this in words that are eloquent, because it basically means that whatever instrument you really start out with and you're getting going with, and that could be any instrument you start out with, trying to hear what else is going on, trying to just close your eyes and hear it in your head. When you do that, what are the drums doing? What are the basses doing? What is the saxophone player? What is the melody player that's playing the guitar or the keys or whatever he might be doing? What's going on there? What all might be included in that? And most of the time, the people that I've seen that work best at like that, they'll get like 2 or 3 instruments they might be working at the same time, or 1 or 2. The guitar and the drums, and then they're trying to fit the bass in there while they play that guitar, or something like that. No more than 2 or 3, maybe 4 at a time in their head, trying to hear them so they don't get confused and there's too much going on, and then they pull out their DAW. Once they get that going on, they'll say, okay, right there, yeah, I've got that little part for the guitar, I've got that, and I know that's going to be like, and the drum's going, and the bass, and then back to the guitar. And they start trying to hear this while they're playing their instrument, trying to really hear what's going on around it, and then get that down and start building on it. Normally it's small sections, just measures or a small movement or a short transition or a break or something like that. Not trying to work on too large of a scope or too long of a time frame, and really just focus on trying to hit something they're going and trying to hear it in their head, trying to be able to close their eyes and hear all these other things going on. You know, after they get down and really sit down with something like this and sit down thinking about these things, you know, where are you at? Is it a cold place? Is it a sunny day? Is it dark? Is it raining? Is it people, places, things? Is it major, minor, diminished? You know, basic structures, what you might be looking at. You're looking at a hook, you're looking at what kind of tempo, you know, what on and on, you know, all these things, trying to get as much of that in their head as they start trying to get some formulations happening, and then really focusing on letting their brain and their mind create the orchestration without the assistance of composition software or a DAW, and really trying to hear it while they're playing their instrument, just kind of hearing stuff and working things out, you know, in their head. You know, I've heard, you know, a lot of times that you want to be able to hear it in your head and then you want to be able to play it on your instrument. So the better you are at hearing it in your head and being able to play it on your instrument, whatever instrument it is, the better you will be at doing this, because you will start to not need it so much. You'll sit down and start hearing vocal lines, choruses, you know, bass lines, drum riffs, keypad progressions, guitar riffs, melody lines, all kinds of things. You know, just don't get it to be too much. You'll get better and better at doing that, and you will become a much better composer and be able to form much better strategies about how you go about composing and how you go about working through a composition, where you start, you know, how you move around in it, getting all the pieces and the parts put together. But hearing it in your head and being able to construct in your head, being able to hear the parts, know what it is on your instrument, and start laying it out is huge. If you can master that skill, you will really take a huge leap forward in mastering strategies for composing and creating, because it is one of the biggest things that I've seen, besides learning to set things off to the side when you're not getting anywhere with them. Those two things are going to help you monumentally in developing your own style and workflows in working through compositions. And how you go about it. You start seeing the place, it's raining, it's cold, you know, you're trying to get a happy feeling, you get up, dance, and jog around the room for a little bit. I don't know, you know, all these things that might get you flowing, taking breaks and walking away for a minute, and, you know, all the things that make a good composer be able to work through a composition. Those two things will help you probably more than anything, because when you're actually sitting down, those two things are normally a defining factor on how well you work through the composition. You really need to work on that to become a good creator and composer. So I certainly hope you enjoyed this next video on Insights, and peace, hope, love. I'll see you in the next video.